Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive modern anxiety. Is artificial intelligence quietly eroding human intelligence? Anchored in a fascinating recent paper from Trends in Cognitive Sciences, this analysis tackles a visceral fear that seems to be on everyone's mind right now.
So, will AI make humans stupid? There is a very real fear floating around out there that by relying heavily on large language models to write emails, synthesize research, or generate code, folks might actually be destroying their own cognitive capacities. It's a heavy question for sure, but science provides a remarkably clear framework for answering it.
Okay, let's dive in by first normalizing this fear a bit. What's really being discussed here is a concept known as cognitive offloading. This is essentially a historical pattern where humans use external tools to reduce our own internal mental labor. And honestly, we've been doing this for a very long time. Arithmetic was offloaded to calculators. Wayfinding was offloaded to GPS, which has literally saved countless road trips from absolute disaster. Back in 2008, Nicholas Carr famously asked if Google was making people stupid because information retrieval was being offloaded to search engines. The current explosion of large language models is really just the newest, most advanced iteration of this exact same cognitive offloading. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that to understand AI's true impact, cognitive systems have to be broken down into two distinct categories. On one side, we have skills. Think of these as the specific software applications learn to accomplish a task effectively, like doing arithmetic, writing an essay, or flying an airplane. On the other side, there are basic cognitive abilities. This is the actual hardware of the human brain, the foundational, domain-general mental capacities like working memory and selective attention that underlie the execution of all those learned skills. But there is a catch when it comes to those learned skills. They demand active practice. Practice isn't just for acquiring a skill in the first place, it is the mind's absolutely necessary defense against forgetting it. And this is exactly where handing all the cognitive heavy lifting over to an AI introduces a serious risk. Let's look at some hard evidence. A high-stakes medical study brilliantly illustrates this risk. Researchers tracked endoscopists and their ability to visually detect adenomas. Before an AI detection tool was introduced, these doctors had a baseline detection rate of 28.4%. Then, they were given the AI tool for a period of time. But when that AI tool was randomly taken away for certain cases, their detection rates dropped significantly to 22.4%. Relying on the AI meant they just weren't practicing that critical visual and cognitive skill of detection, which led to measurable skill decay the second the tool was gone. And moving beyond highly trained medical professionals, cognitive offloading can also completely impede the initial acquisition of a skill for beginners. The source text highlights another fascinating study, this time involving high school students trying to learn a new mathematical concept. Some students had zero AI access, while others were given an AI tool that allowed them to completely offload the work of solving the practice problems. The results of that math study are incredibly revealing. The students who completely offloaded the work to the AI performed better initially on the practice questions, which totally makes sense, right? The AI was doing the heavy lifting. But on a subsequent test where the AI was completely removed, those exact same students performed far worse than the students who never had AI support in the first place. Because they offloaded the work, they never engaged in the mental friction required to actually learn. The AI created an illusion of competence that just completely shattered as soon as the tool was removed. And it turns out this exact same phenomenon applies to knowledge acquisition. Another study compared folks learning a new topic using traditional Google searches versus using AI summaries. The traditional search required learners to open links, read, and mentally synthesize the information themselves. The AI, on the other hand, did all that cognitive work on the user's behalf. As a result, the AI user spent less time learning and retained much less information. Most revealingly, when asked to give advice based on what they had learned, their advice was briefer and much less unique. They fundamentally experienced a shallower depth of learning.
Okay, time for some reassuring news. Let's revisit those basic cognitive abilities, the brain's fundamental hardware, like working memory. While specific skills and knowledge are highly vulnerable to decay if offloaded, the research points out that these foundational capacities are incredibly stubborn and completely resistant to substantial change. In fact, even dedicated cognitive training mostly changes how efficiently a person uses their mental resources, not the sheer amount of resources they possess. What this means is we have a strong bulwark against those dystopian fears. Humanity is not fundamentally losing its baseline intelligence or memory capacity just because someone used ChatGPT to summarize an article. The human hardware remains completely intact. So the researchers make it absolutely clear that negative outcomes, like skill decay and failed learning, are not inevitable. Rather, they depend entirely on the method of interaction. It's not about whether someone uses AI, but exactly how they choose to use it.
This dynamic creates a whole spectrum of cognitive engagement. Imagine a student with a math problem. Down at level 1, there's complete automation, zero cognitive work. Moving up, the AI solves it, but the student actively reviews the solution. Higher still, the AI provides a detailed explanation. And at the absolute peak of cognitive engagement, the AI simply offers a small hint. Every single one of these steps demands a radically different level of mental effort.
Remember those high school math students who bombed their tests after using AI? Well, actually, scratch that. That study had a third group. This group used a custom AI designed specifically to probe their knowledge and fill in the gaps, rather than just handing them the answers. This group treated the AI as a thoughtful tutor rather than a crutch, and they successfully developed the targeted mathematical skills, performing flawlessly even when the tool was removed. So, the paper outlines some highly effective, evidence-based strategies for daily AI interaction. When treated as a collaborative partner for feedback, or when outputs are used as examples to emulate rather than just copy-pasting, AI genuinely benefits future performance. Even the simple act of actively engineering a prompt requires high-level cognitive engagement, turning the human and the AI into an incredibly effective team. The ultimate concluding takeaway from the researchers is this: the absolute necessity is to stay in the cognitive loop. If active mental participation is maintained and interactions are structured thoughtfully, it's possible to not only mitigate the cost of offloading, but to actively boost skill acquisition. So the foundational cognitive abilities that make human beings smart remain perfectly intact, but specific, hard-earned skills definitely demand protection. It all comes down to intentionality. Are everyday interactions with large language models tearing down expertise? Or are they being utilized as a powerful collaborator to build skills up? That is the definitive question to carry into every future AI interaction.